I'm Erik Randall. I'm the channel manager here at Baicells North America. I reside out of beautiful Syracuse, New York, and we do have two offices here in North America, one in Dallas and one in Madison, and our tech support is held there in Madison, Wisconsin. So today's webinar, we're focusing on three questions, but our basic agenda is going to be an introduction to Baicells, quick and easy, why LTE, and then we'll get into the three questions. So the first question is two-part. What are the prominent enterprise verticals building private networks today? And how does this translate into economic opportunity for you? That's question one. Question two is going to be, why are these verticals building private LTE and 5G networks instead of Wi-Fi? And what are their needs and how can you address them? That's question two. Question three is, how can you set up a private cellular network to win enterprise businesses? All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So Baicells introduction. Here in North America, we have over 600 commercial deployments. We are in all 50 states. And our first deployment was actually in 2016 here in North America. So you'll see in that little bit of time, 6-7 years, we've deployed over 600 commercial networks. We're a very small and fast-growing company. So in the U.S., you can see some of our partners there in the corner, Taste of Madison, City of Vegas, and others, Mediacom. So not only are we in North America, but we are also a globally established RAN manufacturer. In North America, again, 600 networks deployed. Some of our major partners, you're going to see AWS, CommScope, and Qualcomm being a very important partner of ours. Not only are they our partner, they are a chipset manufacturer for us. An example of why that's important to us is when the supply chain problems hit during COVID, we didn't have a chipset problem because Qualcomm wanted to see us succeed, so they were providing the chipsets for us. Globally, we do have over 10 Tier 1 operators utilizing our radio equipment. So why private LTE? Private LTE is more cost-effective form of communication than Wi-Fi. One other thing I want to say is you're going to hear me say private LTE and private cellular. Those two are interchangeable words. Cellular or LTE, pretty much interchangeable. So you'll hear me go back and forth. So why private LTE? It provides lower latency. It's a more reliable service. It's up to 80% cheaper to deploy. You have significantly better coverages, and you have better security with the SIM authentication. So just to go into detail about a couple of those, the more reliable services. So with LTE and the better coverages that it's going to provide, you're more reliable when you go a little bit farther now. When your warehouse fills up a little bit more, the LTE has that better coverage to give you more reliable services. With the 80% cheaper, because this has a larger footprint for each one of the access points out there, you don't need as many access points. So if you don't have to pay for as many access points, you don't have to pay for the installer. You don't have to pay for the fiber. You don't have to pay for the fiber or the power. All of that you don't have to pay for with a lesser amount of APs. So what do you need to start a private LTE, private cellular network? You just simply need three components: an integrated small cell, also known as eNode B. So take this point here. This is the Baicells Nova 230i integrated small cell. It's got everything you need. You give it internet access. You have a private cellular, private LTE network. From there, you need a CPE, EUD, CPE standing for customer premise equipment, EUD standing for end user device. So something as simple as a phone. This is the Google Pixel 8 Pro. You give it a SIM card, tell it to go to your network, and you're off on your own private cellular network. And then the last piece you'll need is a control element. That control element's going to manage the network. It's going to manage the SIM cards. That's what that control element is. So that's all you need to get started with a private cellular system is your small cell, your EUD, and your control element. All right, so what are the prominent enterprise verticals building private networks today, and how does this translate into economic opportunity for you? So the first one I'm going to discuss is agriculture. There's going to be plenty of verticals out there. I'm only going to go into 4 of them. The first one being agriculture. Um, the biggest element of agriculture, the farmer. That farmer is so busy doing everything he needs to do. If there's anything we could do to help give back time to the farmer, that farmer could then produce more, produce better. So private LTE will improve the efficiency for farmers in their crops. It provides video monitoring of their crop. It provides data on the crops like the soil. You can monitor the machines with private LTE. So all of this is going to lead to better productivity. The less the farmer has to worry about what's going on out there and go out there and constantly check, the more productive they could be. We've seen 10% increase in productivity in some agricultural scenarios. There's one in particular that Baicells deployed on Eastern Washington where the farmer has many different machines that he needs to monitor on a regular basis. He could have went out to Verizon, AT&T, and gotten a whole bunch of little hotspots and paid additional for each one of those. But instead, he just purchased a private LTE network. He's got full coverage of his farm. And now he could take it one step farther other than just monitoring machines. He could put out video cameras. So now that he has this private LTE system up, he can look at other ways he can improve his agricultural deployment. All right, next is going to be smart cities. With smart cities, you have autonomous vehicles where you want the vehicles to be driving themselves or even driving from a different location. You have video feeds for high crime areas. You have the first responders out there where they need a newer, quicker form of communications. And you also have body cams. These are just a couple of use cases that you have out there that you can look at. Um, we did the city of Las Vegas, where they started off as a regular service provider providing internet data traffic to students during COVID. After that, they realized they could do so much more with their private LTE. They started looking at video feeds for high crime areas. Um, and then they have other different scenarios that they utilize their private LTE for as well. So the market size, $1.12 trillion is the current market size of smart cities. And the growth rate is 22% through 2030. So not only is this a very high valued vertical currently, it's got a high growth rate as well. So if you could think of use cases, ways to improve efficiency for utility workers or anything to put out there, this is a very high growing vertical. All right, next, oil and gas. With oil and gas, you take Western Texas, for example, the oil fields out there. There's no cellular services out there from AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile. So how can you help your techs out there? The tech drives 4 hours, finds out he doesn't have the right tool for the job. He then has to drive 4 hours back to the base location, then 4 hours back to the job site. How can you minimize that? How can you improve efficiency? Private cellular is the way to do it. With private cellular, it's a low power, long distance deployment. You can get, 7 to 10 miles out of one LTE base station. You can monitor your fields with IoT and LoRaWAN. You can now put up video feeds as well to where you can see if someone's coming onto the property, if someone's vandalizing the property. All of that is very important for oil and gas. But what's most important is actually the safety of the technicians in the field. So private cellular can provide a VoLTE service for those technicians. Now they can call back in and say, hey, what's going on at this site? Or the base location could call the tech and say, we have an issue at this site, please go check it out. So it's going to improve safety for the technician, and it's also going to improve efficiency because less time to action by going back and forth. The oil industry is currently a $1.6 billion industry in 2022, and it continues to have a 6% growth rate here in North America. Warehousing and logistics, here's a big one, 3.3 million warehouses globally. all of those warehouses, they need communications inside. Here in North America, we have Amazon warehouses going up left and right, and Amazon utilizes a lot of autonomous robots. The way those autonomous robots are going to work, they need low latencies. They need low latency for control. So that's where the robots come into play. That's where private LTE comes into play. So as these warehouses start filling up, um, LTE stays reliable, whereas Wi-Fi, the signal will start dropping. You can't have that with your robots. So with warehousing and logistics, private LTE provides complete control of operations. You have low latency scanners, autonomous robots, and IoT sensors, all that can actually utilize the private LTE network. When you're going from inside the warehouse to outside the warehouse, you need that handoff to be seamless as well. You need that entire deployment area to be covered. And that's where private LTE comes into play. So we've seen 80% cheaper to deploy private LTE versus Wi-Fi. And why is it so much cheaper? When you don't need as many access points out there to cover the area, it's going to be significantly cheaper on the labor and also running the fiber, Ethernet, or power, whatever you're running out there. In North America, this was a $20 billion industry in 2023. All right, second question. Why are these verticals building private LTE and 5G networks instead of Wi-Fi? And what are their needs and how can you address them? One of the biggest catchphrases of the century is 5G. Everyone talks about 5G. No one really defined it for a long time. Everyone just thought that, hey, if I throw 5G at the end of it, it'll sell. So let's do another catchphrase, Industry 4.0. So what is Industry 4.0? Let's define that first. So Industry 4.0 is the fourth revolution of the industry. It's all about connectivity. So when we look at the first industrial revolution, we look at steam. The second, electricity. The third, machinery. So they're all different revolutions of the industry. And now we're in the fourth revolution, which is now connectivity. So the VP of global marketing here at Baicells, I was talking to him about this webinar. And the one thing he said to me about Industry 4.0 is connectivity that enables automation. And what a great little saying that is. I mean, it's really true. Connectivity does enable it. So without the connectivity, you can't have that automation. And that's where it comes into play for you to have that lower latency, for you to have those autonomous vehicles and robots. That connectivity provides it. So all parts of Industry 4.0, you're looking at artificial intelligence, advanced engineering, and you're looking at connectivity. And LTE provides greater opportunities for more security, less latency, larger deployment areas, and faster deployment times. So the economic growth. Industry 4.0 is a new technology. It increases productivity and provides better efficiency. One quote that I read while researching this was every single industry will be transformed during the fourth industrial revolution, but some a greater degree than others. So you look at that saying, every industry will be changed by connectivity, by data, by this fourth industrial revolution. It will be. How will that change take place in each industry? It really depends. Some will have a greater impact than others. Some will increase the efficiency so many times that we're not even aware of at this time. So the economic growth is going to provide more connected devices. So the economic growth for Industry 4.0 is expected to reach $3.7 trillion globally by 2025. That's a pretty large number. All right. So how can you set up a private cellular network to win enterprise business? So when you're looking at doing your private cellular, you have to look at what is it, how am I going to do this? So as you're looking at it, having a greater understanding of every vertical is going to provide your mind to get going and say, all right, I understand that this vertical could utilize this. Connectivity can enable that better. That's where, greater understanding of each vertical will give you more opportunities to sell into it. So find new ways to improve the efficiencies of each one of those verticals. That again, once you improve efficiencies, you can sell it, create new business opportunities, improve communications, learn the technology. So then you build the network and adjust to the industry. A great example of this was one of the podcasts that I listened to recently. Max, do you remember the name of that podcast? All right. So we'll have that podcast in the chat. You there?
I am here, but I do not remember the name of the podcast, but I will get a link to it in the description of the video.
All right, perfect. We'll have that podcast in there as well. But what they were talking about during that podcast was when Apple first came out with the smartphone, there weren't a lot of apps. There were very few. So Apple came out with that connectivity device, that piece, and it got the mind going. So you look at today, everyone walks around staring at their phone. If I need the weather, I need to look at my phone. Need the time, I look at my phone. I need to calculate a tip. It's an app. So many different apps have come from Apple creating the smartphone. That is the same thing with private cellular, private LTE. You're building this network for yourself. Now you just need to figure out exactly what you're going to put on that network. Back to building a private cellular network. So a solution architecture overview, you need 3 components. You need the control element, as discussed earlier. In our case, that control element is the cloud core. That's where you're going to go in, you're going to set up your SIMs, you're going to manage your network. That's the cloud core, that's the control element. Now you need your small cell. That's the radio access network. These little eNode Bs, small cell eNode Bs, that's the radio access network. And then the last piece being the terminal, that's going to be your cell phone. Whether it's a cell phone or whether it's an actual CPE, you have your different options when it comes to that. So to build a private cellular network, just 3 components: your control element, your small cell eNode B, and your terminal themselves. Then you're off and running. It is that simple. And as we round about our last slide, to learn more about Baicells, and we have an indoor starter kit. This is going to teach you private cellular right here. Everything you need in a box, $1,700. So you have the small cell there with the Neutrino 430. You have 10 SIM cards to play with multiple end user devices, CPEs, and then you have our cloud core as the control element itself. That's basically it, everybody. And thank you for your time today. Reach out to us if you have any questions. My name is Erik Randall. My email address is on the screen. Again, don't hesitate to reach out if you want to get that indoor starter kit. If you have questions on private cellular, don't hesitate to reach out. Again, thank you, everybody.